I'm going to have us do a ritual. It's one that it's a saying from Thomas, and it's one I like very much. It's in the front of every one of our publications. It's called The Great Work. So I'm going to ask you to recite after me. We are about the great work.
We are about the great work.
We all have our particular work.
We all have our particular work.
Some of us are teachers.
Some of us are teachers.
Some of us are healers.
Some of us are healers.
Some of us in various professions.
Some of us in various professions.
Some of us are farming.
Some of us are farming.
We have a variety of occupations.
We have a variety of occupations.
But beside the particular work we do, and the particular lives we lead, we have a great work that everyone is involved in.
We have a great work that everyone is involved in.
And no one is exempt from.
And no one is exempt from.
That is the work of moving on from a terminal Cenozoic to an emerging Echozoic era in the story of the planet Earth. Which is the great work. I'm talking today about the Echozoic society. And we hear a lot about sustainability. Sustainability is obviously very important. We're going to be facing increasingly difficult circumstances. But what makes change possible? I think that's really the key concern. What makes change possible in the human community? You remember last night that Thomas, I quoted from Thomas saying that if the efforts of the ecologists are not succeeding, it isn't because of politics or economics. It's because of the mythic power of the industrial myth. We were talking, someone was talking earlier this morning about the stories that we live by. John was talking about this separateness and the ego and I'm number one. And you think in our society how we rehearse that 1,000 times every day. 1,000 times. I mean, when you watch the television, it just rehearses that myth. It is a liturgy, you see. It's a liturgy that we keep telling ourselves that this is the way the world is. And so as long as we are caught in that kind of mythic presence, then we're not going to be able to move into a sustainable world. It's not going to be a series of logical choices. It's going to be a reimagination. You see, when someone in the Middle Ages thought of a great building, they did not think of a skyscraper. They thought of a church. Well, that's because their images, their archetypes of what value was, that was what they saw through. I mean, it wasn't like they consciously thought about which is the great building. That was their archetype of a building. So when you thought of a town, then you'd have a clustered community. That was their archetype of a town. When you went to build a town, that's the way you built it. But now we have new archetypes. We have the archetype of the suburb, the separateness that John was talking about. So if we're going to build a house, you know how to build a house. You build it like they're built out here. But we have to reimagine the house. We have to recreate the house. And what Thomas says is that we have to tie into the imagination of the earth. That there is a spontaneity. I mean, suppose your imagination was shaped in Carolyn School. Suppose you grew up that way. what would your intelligibility be? What would your intelligibility be if you grew up that way? And what would you imagine a community was like? At any rate, this is the great teaching of Thomas, and it is so important. It's so important. It is, how do we bring about change? And we don't understand how we bring about change. It's about reshaping the imagination. It's about a new sense of the sacred. It's about a cultural transformation. It's about a re-education. It's about re-understanding what the human is. It's about knowing that the world is alive in every element, that there's a spirit participating in everything. I want to take a moment to go over a few key concepts. And I'm going to start with the mission of CES on the back page of your program. Because this isn't just about CES, it's about, it applies way beyond what CES is, but the mission of CES is to offer a vision through dialogue. I'd like to place dialogue up there as one of the key methodologies. We have a way of speaking to each other that really is, I'm going to listen to you so I can see if you agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, I'm going to tell you what I think, right? We have to understand dialogue. An ongoing dialogue where the first task is to listen to the other person. What's the other person saying? What are they tying into? And that should transform my own understanding before I respond. So this set of images and archetypes and understandings isn't going to come from Ted or John or Andy or Carolyn. It's going to come from all of us by sharing. And we'll have time, not adequate time, but I hope this is just the start. But to offer a vision. So what is, we've had in our own organization, we've had a darn hard time about this mission statement. Some people say offer is not enough. I just think it is. You just offer it. You offer a vision. And it's a vision that you create together. And then the vision drives the action. The dream drives the action, as Thomas says. Of an ecozoic society, I'm going to say a little bit about that. And then our particular work in our organization is through research, education, and the arts. Now, other people have other ways of carrying that out. Carolyn's is working with children, and there's other organizations here as well. So we emphasize, Thomas has this famous statement about the great work, the task of our time is to reinvent the human at the species level. This often is glossed over through critical reflection. This is one of the ways that humans change, through critical reflection. We don't think very well. We do not think very well. We don't, our economics is just assumes that every resource is substitutable, assumes that the economy is about money. This is basically a thinking problem.